What actually this? How the mechanism, how the concepts, how these subunits work together. What are the methods to be followed? So all these things are going to be discussed and are putting these mechanisms to work. So here you have to see that the challenge, how the challenge lies in applying the concepts like objects, interfaces, classes, and inheritance to build the design patterns to be flexible and reusable. That means concepts like objects. So what are the different types of objects you use? What operations you are going to perform? All the concepts to be known, and how these interface is given for the clients, how the packet provides interface between the clients and the subsystems, and what are the different classes you use, and how the inheritance takes place from superclass to subclass, and how is the builder pattern works, how the software construction process is separated between each of these objects. So all these things, the challenge is with respect to the concepts of different objects, how the objects are coupled, cascaded, all that, then interfaces, how the interface is done between the clients and the objects, and how the classes are inherited from parent class to subclass. Parent class is nothing but superclass. And how the builder works out here, how the software construction process is divided between each of these objects, how the parent class will assign the job to the subclasses. So all these are going to be considered while designing the pattern. You have to consider all these concepts such that design patterns are to be flexible and reusable. What do you mean by flexibility? Flexibility means your design pattern should support to add that you have to attach the responsibilities. You can go for n number of stages. I can cascade n objects. So that is called as flexible. What is reusable? How is that I will do? I'll reuse the existing object. So you need to design a pattern such that your pattern should support these two properties. What are those? Flexibility and reusability. So these are the subtopics to be discussed under facing the challenges to reach these parameters, that concepts like objects, interfaces, classes, and inheritance, and how to build the design patterns to be flexible and reusable. The first topic here is inheritance versus composition. Then we also have delegation. Then the third one, inheritance versus parameterized types. So coming to the first one, inheritance versus composition. So let us understand what is inheritance and also what is composition, and what is the difference between inheritance and composition. So here there are two techniques, one is inheritance and one is composition. So two techniques for reusing the functionality in object-oriented systems are class inheritance and object composition. So I need to satisfy the property of reusability. So in order to satisfy the property of reusability, what is reusability? I am going to reuse the same function. So in the object-oriented systems, we will go for two types of techniques. What are those? One is inheritance, that is called class inheritance. The second one we have object composition. So let us consider one by one. Let us understand what is class inheritance and what is object composition. Class inheritance, I can also call this class inheritance as white box reuse. Class inheritance means what? It is a method used to reuse the functionality. So this type of reusing the functionality is known as white box reuse. I also have in detail I will be discussing what is white box reuse in the next slide. Next we have object composition. Object composition method. This technique is also known as black box reuse. So what are the things we discussed in the first slide? Here the challenge is we need to apply the concepts like the different, what are the variable types, the different objects you are going to perform the operations, then how the packet pattern provides interface between these objects and the outside world, that means to the client, and what are the different classes I am going to use, what are the different classes will create the objects here, and how the inheritance takes place here. This that white box reuse I will be discussing, and how to build the software construction with respect to the design patterns. We will be designing such that your pattern should support the properties, flexibility and reusability. So these things are discussed with respect to the three methods here. One is inheritance versus composition. The second part, delegation. I also have inheritance versus parameterized types. So coming to the first one, inheritance versus composition. There are two techniques. The first technique, in this I will go for two techniques. One is inheritance, this is with respect to class. So class inheritance is also known as white box reuse. I also go for composition, means object composition. Object composition is second receiving object rectangle to perform the operation that it has to find the area of rectangle. So what is the operation to be found here? The name of the operation is area here. How is that it is going to find? What are the parameters required for that? The values are found in terms of width and height. So what actually how you are going to find the area of rectangle? The return value should be the result of the product of the width and height. So what I will perform? I'll perform the product of width and height. That is the return type to be sent to the original object. So that is shown here. So return type gives the result of the rectangle. Rectangle is the another object which has already found the area. The area of the rectangle is the product of width and height. That is the return value that is given to the original object, which is window. So what is delegation? Delegation is how that delegation takes place. Two objects are involved in handling a request. In this example, I have taken two objects. Two objects can handle the same request. So first original object will receive the request and it will assign the job to the receiving object. So a receiving object delegates. It performs the operation assigned by the original object to its delegate. Delegate is the original one. Receiving will perform. Delegate means it performs the operation assigned by the delegate. Delegate original object, whatever is assigned to receiving object, that is performed by the receiving object and the result is sent to the original object. So here I have considered window as a original object, rectangle as a receiving object. So the function, the operation to be performed is area of rectangle. I have just used the same name here, that's it. So area of the rectangle is going to be found here. So name of the operation is area here. How is it I will perform? I will take the data set value. The return type should be the product of width and height. So return is nothing but the product of width and height. So here the result of this rectangle object is given to the window. So what is the return type gives? Rectangle. What actually the rectangle gives? The answer of this operation area. What is the answer of this operation area? Width into height. So now the window will take the help of the rectangle to perform the operation of area, which is product of width and height. This is how the delegation takes place. This is how the request is handled by two